My father used my college fund to send my cousin to NYU, and when the debt crushed him years later, he called me to bail him out. What happened next changed everything. I'm 28 now, and I've built a life I'm proud of. But it started in the shadows of a grief-stricken house and a man who never forgave me for surviving. My mom died giving birth to me. I never met her, but she lives in the stories relatives whisper and the photos that still line the walls of the home I left behind. My father, Thomas, was never the same after she passed. He never looked at me without that haunted fog in his eyes. I wasn't just a kid to him, I was the closing chapter to the woman he loved. He fed me, clothed me, drove me to school. But I can't remember a single hug. Not a bedtime story, not a good job when I won something. He spoke only to correct me or compare me to someone else. And that someone was always Ryan, my cousin. Ryan lost his dad in a car accident when we were both 9. That tragedy made him a permanent guest in our home. At first, I thought it'd be fun, someone to share video games with, build pillow forts. But Ryan became more than a guest. He became the son my father wanted. Smart. Athletic. Social. Everything I wasn't. The comparisons came daily. Why can't you be more like Ryan? Ryan made the travel soccer team. Ryan's teachers say he's leadership material. I tried, God, I tried. I studied harder. I played basketball until my knees throbbed. I even picked up guitar because Dad mentioned once that Ryan might want to learn it. Nothing worked. My wins were invisible. Ryan's tiniest achievements? Celebrated. One day in 7th grade, I came home with first place from the state science fair, hand-built model of the Mars rover, sensors and all. I walked in holding the trophy like it weighed 50 pounds from the hope inside me. My dad didn't even look up from the football game he was watching with Ryan. Put it on the counter, he muttered. By the time high school rolled around, the damage was done. Ryan and I were the same age, but Dad only invested in one future. He paid for Ryan's SAT tutors, private fencing lessons, even a summer program in Paris. When I asked for help paying college application fees, he said, "You should be more realistic." I still remember the exact day I found out Dad was covering Ryan's full ride to NYU. It was May 15, 2015. I'd been accepted into a decent university myself, ready to major in physics. I had the acceptance letter in one hand when I overheard Dad on the phone. "Of course, Ryan. Don't worry about tuition. I'll take care of all of it." When I confronted him, his face stayed flat. "You're more independent. Ryan needs the boost." That night, I tore the letter in half. I tried anyway, worked 40 hours a week, took classes in between shifts at the diner. But by semester's end, I couldn't keep up. I dropped out. Meanwhile, Ryan was sharing glossy photos of dorm parties and ski trips funded by the man who wouldn't even co-sign a loan for me. That was the night I packed everything and left. No goodbye. No note. I moved 3 towns over, started over. I worked construction during the day, bartended at night. Some weeks I didn't sleep more than 4 hours. But I made it work. I clawed my way into stability. Eventually, I got a job as assistant manager at a bookstore. Not glamorous, but it paid the rent. I started night classes at a community college. I found friends who felt like real family. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a burden. I thought that part of my life, the part that included my father, was over. Then, last week, I got a call from an unknown number. "Eli?" The voice rasped. "It's Dad. I need your help." And just like that, the past came roaring back. When I heard his voice, I froze. It had been nearly 3 years since I'd last spoken to my father, and in that time, I'd learned how to live without waiting for his approval. But hearing him now, older, breathless, sounding almost small, it rattled something I didn't know was still alive inside me. "Eli," he said again, as if testing the name in his mouth. "I know this is out of the blue, but I need some help. Financial help." For a second, I said nothing. Just stared at the wall above my kitchen sink, where my lease agreement was taped next to a photograph of my bookstore team dressed in Halloween costumes. My little found family. I finally asked the only question that made sense. Why me? There was a pause, long enough for my heart to start thudding in anticipation. Then he said, Ryan can't, he's dealing with some things. He's not in a position to help right now. Ryan. The golden child. NYU grad, marketing executive, the man who got a MacBook, a furnished studio, and all of Dad's savings. That Ryan? Let me get this straight, I said, voice slow and flat. You couldn't spare $1 from my college. But now that your favorite is tapped out, I'm the emergency exit? He stammered something about regret, about how things were different back then. I cut him off. So what happened? What things changed so much that your perfect Ryan can't afford to help his own benefactor? He hesitated. He's going through something with business. Some investments didn't work out. He's trying, Eli. He really is. I almost laughed. What about your savings? The house? He sighed. There's nothing left. I mortgaged it again. For Ryan. I thought he had a sure thing, a startup with some college friends. It didn't pan out. I owe the bank over 80 grand. They're threatening to seize the property. I blinked. I wasn't shocked. Not really. Just tired. Tired of the predictability. My father had gone all in on Ryan's fantasy, and now he was calling me like I was the contingency plan. Like I was the janitor of the family, here to sweep up the pieces he broke. No, I said simply. I'm not giving you money. The silence that followed was heavy. Then he said, almost whispering, I know I wasn't a good father. I didn't know how to deal with your mother's death. I see that now. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes. That word. As if years of rejection and neglect could be filed away like a misplaced receipt. I used to think, I said, my voice shaking now, that if I just worked harder, was better, you'd finally look at me the way you looked at Ryan. But you never did. I gave up trying a long time ago. He started to say something about second chances, about how people can change. But I didn't want to hear it. I hung up. That night, I sat on my mattress, unable to sleep. The old ache crept in, the one that used to whisper, what if he's right? What if you are the selfish one? But another voice, louder now, said, you owe him nothing. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. Ryan was supposedly too busy to help, but the last I saw, his Instagram was flooded with pictures from Ibiza, designer suits, and a new Range Rover. Something didn't add up. I made a decision. I needed to know exactly what happened. Not because I wanted to help, but because I needed closure. Because what I would uncover next would change how I saw everything. The next day, I did something I swore I wouldn't do again. I reached out to someone from the old world. Aunt Denise, my dad's sister. She had always been civil with me, even after I disappeared. The kind of person who sent Christmas cards with generic messages like, hope you're doing well, but never asked where I'd gone. Still, I figured she might know what was going on. I texted her simply, hey, do you know what's been going on with Dad and Ryan? 10 minutes later, she called. Eli? She said, like she was surprised I still existed. Wow. I didn't expect to hear from you. I skipped the pleasantries. Just tell me what happened. She didn't hesitate. Apparently, Dad hadn't just paid for Ryan's tuition. Over the past 6 years, he'd paid off Ryan's credit card debt twice, put a down payment on his condo, and even co-signed on a loan for Ryan's startup, a crypto-adjacent app that collapsed less than a year after launch. The bank had already seized Ryan's car. The house was next. I warned him. Aunt Denise said. I told your father he was betting the farm on a kid who never learned how to fail. But he said Ryan just needed one good break. He said, Ryan's got potential. Eli's already stable. He doesn't need me. I hung up with my ears ringing. Eli's already stable. That's all I ever was to him. Not a son. Not a person. Just a utility. A machine that didn't need fuel. A spare part. That night, a memory hit me, clear as glass, like it had been waiting for years. When I was 16, I got my first job at a movie theater. It wasn't glamorous, but I was proud. I saved up my paychecks to buy a second-hand laptop, something I could use for school, maybe even apply to colleges. I remember coming home with the box in my arms, excited to show it off. Ryan was in the living room, showing Dad some video he'd made of his soccer highlights. Dad was laughing. Beaming. I said, "Hey, look what I got." And Dad didn't even look up. He just said, "Don't brag. Ryan's showing me something important." Important. That word buried itself in my brain. I carried that weight for years, always trying to be important. Always trying to matter. And now? Now I was the backup generator, expected to flicker to life only when the golden child failed. The next day, I logged into LinkedIn, curious to see what Ryan had really been doing. His profile said, Founder and CEO, Synertech. I googled it. Nothing. Just a placeholder website and a list of vague services. Blockchain integration, AI optimization, monetization strategy. No staff, no press, no reviews. Just buzzwords and a broken contact form. I scrolled further. Then I found it. An article from last month. A lawsuit. Investor fraud. One of Ryan's backers was suing him for misrepresenting the value of the company. Dad had poured everything into a house of cards. And now it was falling apart. I stared at the screen for a long time, thinking about all the nights I'd eaten cold cereal for dinner while Ryan was out partying on a trust that wasn't his. I thought about how differently my life could have gone if I'd had even a fraction of the support Ryan got. But then I thought of the lesson I'd learned through all of it. I don't need to be anyone's favorite to build a life that's mine. Still, the betrayal burned. Not just what they did, but what it meant. It meant I had been right all along. And that knowledge felt like grieving the same childhood, again. After discovering Ryan's entire empire was built on sand, and Dad's loyalty had bankrupted our family home, I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. It was surreal. The golden boy wasn't just broke, he was a fraud. And Dad? He'd gambled everything for an illusion. But it wasn't until I got a message from Ryan himself that the fury really kicked in. It came late at night, after I'd posted a vague quote on my Instagram story. You can't ask someone to save you from a fire you started. 5 minutes later, a notification, Ryan D. sent you a message. Hey man. I know we haven't talked in a while. I assume Dad told you what's going on. Look, I never meant for things to blow up like this. He told me you might be able to help. Anything would make a difference right now. I stared at the screen, numb. He told me you might be able to help. So they were planning this together? That's when I snapped. I called Ryan. No texting. No tiptoeing. The second he picked up, I said, Did you ever think, just once, that maybe you shouldn't have taken everything I never even had a chance to ask for? He paused. Eli, it's not like that. Dad always wanted to help. No, I said, my voice rising. Dad wanted to believe in you because it made him feel like he hadn't failed as a father. So he failed me instead. He started with that smug calmness he always used when we were kids. I get that you're angry. Angry? I laughed. Ryan, I dropped out of college while you were taking European Lit at NYU on Dad's dime. I bartended double shifts to pay rent while you leased a Tesla. And now that your little empire collapsed, you two expect me to come back and save the day like a damn insurance policy? Then I said something I never thought I would. You and Dad deserve each other. I'm not bailing either of you out. Not now. Not ever. I hung up before he could respond. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. But that high didn't last. A few days later, I got a call from Aunt Denise again. She sounded shaken. Elijah, she said, I didn't want to say anything earlier, but you should know, your dad's been diagnosed with early-stage heart failure. I blinked. What? Hospital bills are stacking up. That's partly why he called you. He hasn't told Ryan. Doesn't want him to worry. The room spun. I sat down, suddenly cold. My father, flawed, distant, cruel, was dying? I didn't know how to feel. This wasn't some movie moment where everything clicks into place, and you rush to their bedside in tears. It was murky, brutal, and confusing. I spent the night sitting at the edge of my bed, staring at nothing. Because beneath the anger, the history, the betrayal, there was still a part of me that once begged for that man's attention. And now, he might not be here long enough to ever give it. I didn't sleep. Just kept thinking about the time he missed my high school graduation to drive Ryan to a fencing tournament. The way he never said, "I'm proud of you." Not even once. And now he wanted my help, again. Only this time was running out. The next Saturday, I drove 3 hours to the hospital where Dad had been admitted. I didn't call ahead. I didn't bring flowers or a card. I just walked in, heart pounding, not because I was scared, but because I didn't know what I was about to become. He was in room 214B, hooked up to machines, looking smaller than I remembered. Not weak exactly, just diminished. Like time had finally caught up with a man who never let himself slow down. He blinked when he saw me. "Eli? I'm not here to stay," I said. "I just need to say something." He nodded, eyes already glassy. I stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed. "You always wanted me to be quiet, obedient, easy. I was. And you didn't even see me. You poured everything into Ryan like he was a savings bond that would pay out someday. And now? You're broke. Alone. And you need the son you ignored for 20 years. His lips parted, but I kept going. You thought I didn't notice. But I did. Every single time. You clapped for Ryan when he made the JV team and barely looked up when I won first place in the statewide math Olympiad. You bought him a laptop for college. I borrowed one from the library. I watched your love get measured in dollars, and I came up short every time. He whispered, "I didn't know you saw it that way." I laughed bitterly. You didn't see me at all. Silence. Then he said, "I'm sorry, Eli. I really am." It was the first time he'd ever said those words to me. And they landed like paper. Too light. Too late. "I'm not here to forgive you," I said quietly. "I'm here to let you know I'm not saving you. Not financially. Not emotionally. Not with this. I've saved myself. That's enough." His chest rose and fell. His eyes brimmed. "Then why did you come?" I stepped closer. "Because I wanted you to hear it. From me. Not from your sister. Not from Ryan. From the son you left behind." I paused. And because part of me needed to say goodbye to the idea that you'd ever change. He looked down at his trembling hands. "You became everything I didn't think you could. You built a life without me. I was wrong. I know." And I walked out. No hug. No dramatic embrace. Just the sound of my boots on linoleum. 2 weeks later, he sent me a letter. Not a text. A handwritten letter. He wrote about my mom. How her death broke something in him. How he resented me for surviving, even though he knew it wasn't fair. How Ryan reminded him of her warmth, while I reminded him of the day she died. He said he didn't know how to love me without remembering what he'd lost. And he said he hoped it wasn't too late to start over. I haven't responded. I might never. But I'm not angry anymore. Because I realized something walking out of that hospital. You can grieve the father you never had, and still refuse to become the son they expect you to be. Today, I live in a little apartment above the bookstore. I still take night classes. I still work long shifts. But every step is mine. Every dollar earned, every friend made, every late night dinner with people who see me, it's all mine. Last week, I helped my friend Cassie move into her first place. We built furniture on the floor, drank warm cider, and laughed until we cried. And for a second, I looked around and realized This is family. Not blood. Choice.